All right, it's finally here. Finally.
Hi there, knife people, hello, lady and gentlemen, and especially one gentleman, Jared Neves of Neve Knives channel. What you saw in the white packaging is the knife that just arrived, and this is Jared's first production. I don't know if he ever made knives for himself at home, but this is his first collaboration with the actual production company, Kell Knives, of Ringgold, Georgia. Anyway, I'm going to give you my first impressions, critique, and we'll see where it goes from there. Before I open the knife that came from Kell, I am going to critique another custom-made knife. And that knife is something that I made myself. You've never seen it on my channel. I'm a little bit embarrassed showing it today. But the reason I'm showing it is because just from the experience of trying to make one knife that actually cuts and does things and can be carried the way I intended, just from that one experience, I know how hard it is to develop a product such as a fixed blade EDC or self-defense knife. So here we go.
With its sheath made of wood and rawhide, this knife is an accurate representation of a tundra knife, a tool that would be carried by the nomadic people of the north, where they followed the herds of the reindeer. With its blade made out of simple carbon steel and a handle made of wood, leather, and brass, this knife represents the very basic capabilities that nomadic people would have in the form of small portable forges. As you can see, this knife is very crudely made, except for the sheath, which, while looking crude, has capability to hold the knife very securely, and it is ambidextrous, as in the knife can be inserted either way and retained in this sheath.
Clearly, I didn't really know what I was doing. Clearly, I didn't know what I was doing. Just look at the edge here. It sort of resembles a blade shape. 10 years, I think 10 or more years ago, I did this. So the purpose of this interlude was to illustrate how hard it is to create something that works. It is definitely a lot harder than critique something that has been made. So Jared, if you're watching, I respect you getting out there on the limb and coming up with a design and working with a manufacturer and weaving that tricky path to go from idea to the product.
I pre-ordered this knife after watching Jared's live about it in October 2023. Today is February 12th, 2024. And when Jared announced that they will start shipping the knives literally next month, as in November 23, I was kind of doubtful because I am familiar with how manufacturing and putting in the market new product, how long that takes. So that was an estimate that was very optimistic. But after speaking with Kell directly, I realized how many challenges they faced in producing this knife. One of the challenges was manufacturing the sheath. It is more challenging than you think because of the small dimensions and trying to fit a usable clip onto such a small sheath. So I'm not surprised there. They did put a thumb ramp, which will work in a particular carry orientation, but we'll talk about that a little later. Right now, let's enjoy looking at Neves Knives logo, which brings me right to testing the edge, because Jared is a master sharpener. Clearly, he did not sharpen this knife because the edge is not particularly hair-popping. The ergos, though, that's what kind of distracts me right away because the ergos are good. I have a medium slim hand, and there are very few knives in the market right now that fit me well, especially when I try to lock the grip in different orientations. And it does the karambit things really well. It swivels, it creates the brass knuckle sort of aid around the index finger. The scales are well executed, they're very grippy, and I love this denim color that I picked. The tip is perfectly executed as well. Clearly, if you expect a paper cutting performance here, it will lag behind pretty much any kind of non-karambit style knife. It does bite in and slice through paper, and I probably should strop it because I detect a little bit of the edge, inconsistencies, maybe a little bit of a burr. That is something I will do at a later point. The sheath is constructed of the light gauge Kydex, and it has decent retention. If you watch my channel, you know that I focus a lot on the sheaths for the fixed blades because sheath makes or breaks your blade carrying experience. Speaking of the blade, it's constructed of 80 CRV2 steel, which is well known for its toughness and edge retention properties. It is not corrosion resistant. This steel exceeds 1075, 1095, and D2 in almost every parameter. Time to take a look at how it carries. I place it on my belt without changing how the clip was attached from the factory, and as you can see, the handle is pointing down, which precludes me from inserting my index finger. It would be extremely awkward to use your index finger, and you would not end up holding the knife in the correct orientation. For this arrangement to work properly, the knife would have to be inserted with the handle upward. This double clip is made out of spring steel, and it has a retaining claw on the end, so taking this sheath off the belt will be a challenge. Putting it on the belt was easy though. To change the orientation, you just have to take those two screw and nuts out. There is a nut, a screw, and a spacer made out of hard plastic. So now I'm inserting the nuts from the opposite direction and then basically reapplying all the hardware sandwich back onto the sheath, and I'm going to screw it in. It is a little bit disappointing that I can only attach this clip in a couple different orientations, but as I said earlier, it's a tiny sheath. There's not much territory to work with. And we're going to try it again now on the right side. So now the clip sits upside down, but these hooks, they secure the sheath pretty well. And now I can correctly access it with my index finger and have a correct grip as the knife comes out. These hooks will never be friendly with your leather belt, but as far as taking the sheath off the belt, it's actually easier with the metal piece orientated in this direction. Now I'm going to try it on the cross draw side. Goes in, I'm telling you, this is actually easier to do than in a right side up configuration. And as you can see, it works great with the correct grip. It's sort of a built-in quick draw system now. It is still winter here, so I'm putting on my warm garment to see if the knife will print through the garment. I'll tell you, somebody would have to be really peering at your waistline to spot it. Access is pretty good. Same as quick draw with your other hobby. As far as drawing it with your weaker hand, you're going to be pretty limited to like a regular grip because that arrangement with a ring and a thumb doesn't work too great. And here's an interesting observation. Even though the sheath slides on the belt just a little bit, drawing the knife there's no problem because you're actually drawing it perpendicularly to the belt due to the geometry of this blade. With a thinner garment, an experienced eye would spot the knife's handle, but the axis is still great. I like carrying fixed blades in my pocket. Unfortunately, the small Alti clip would not fit the whole pattern on this knife in any orientation. One improvement I was able to do to this sheath is to add this bump here. Let me explain why you need it. When the knife sits on your belt, the handle protrudes outward, and that prints on your clothing. This is the same idea as with appendix carry holsters. It's best seen on the belt. So let me put the knife on the belt with my little bumper boss installed. And now when I tighten the belt, that protrusion pushes the knife's handle into my body, so it prints a lot less. As you can see, it prints more into my tactical muffin top than anywhere else. I also can lower it below the belt level, and that kind of fixes the position of where my handle rides. On my channel, I test knives to an extreme of what they are advertised to do, and this being a self-defense knife, I am going to test it against a Kevlar vest. In my experience, the best way to sort of puncture through a Kevlar vest is with a slim dagger-style blade. My previous experience testing the Riyadh EXO-K was, below average penetration. Main reason because these blades aren't designed to cut through, thick material. They're designed to score and, cause damage some other way. And they're always thick, so they're a lot thicker than a dagger-style blade. So without further ado, and another thing, penetrating through Kevlar requires direct hit. Here, I am limited. If I strike directly, I'll be hitting the blunt side of the blade. If I angle my wrist, I'm losing some momentum in my strike, but that's the only way I can actually do it. So let's try it. Yeah. So because of how thick it is, Kevlar does its job same way it would do with a pistol round. For comparison, see, I haven't done it with a brand new Benchmade Claymore OTF, so maybe now it's a good time. Yeah, so this goes through like butter. And what I have as a backing here is a insulation foam. It's pretty dense. And so if puncturing is what you are looking for in a knife, Karambit may not be what you need. It's not specific to Neve's knife or Kell knife. Here's just so that you know I'm not kidding. Very hard to angle the blade for puncturing with a curved shape like this. Some of you are concerned about sharpening recurve blade on a Karambit, but if you have proper skill set and tool, you can do it. It's no different from sharpening anything else. You just go a little bit slower. I don't have a fancy microscope, so I like to wear my, $10 jeweler's binoculars like this. And this allows me to see. So I already sharpened it. I'm just touching it up, but I wanted to roll back and show you what I did. So you always have to mark the edge here before you start, because I am not trying to change the factory angle. And this is 800 grit. So I already found the angle, and I'll show you in a second. So all you do is you just do it like a normal sharpening. With one, I do it on most knives with very pointy tips. I kind of put my finger here, so when this comes off the tip, it doesn't roll over. Otherwise, the tip will look bent. So I'm kind of pressing on the tip here, just ever so slightly.
and I'm just rolling it off. I keep looking at it through my magnifiers. If you have eagle vision, you don't need that. And so I don't recommend coming in from the tip. I always go from the back forward. The blade is so short, it takes no time at all to get a good consistent edge. I'll show you in this. I'm going to flip it, and then I'll show you the final angle here. So it's even easier this way because I can see my index finger on my supporting hand. And I have to say, this was sharpening so easily, the steel, that I actually thought maybe they forgot to heat treat it. That's how easily it was sharpening. And I used my Japanese test files of different hardness for a scratch test, and I scratched right next to the edge butt on the choil here. And you know, it was spot on. At 60, just barely started scratching the surface, so they're right there.
32 degrees per side, 64 inclusive, is about as high as I would personally go, but it does cut paper now.
So, you know, tactical knife, you know where it's going next.
This is a tree of doom. Here I test the knife for toughness. More frequently than I like, the tip breaks off. So when I test a knife and the tip breaks off, I get hate mail. Oh, you shouldn't use this knife like that. It's not meant for this type of use. Of course it's not meant. It's a test. Subscribe to my channel so you can research the knife before you buy it. I am not affiliated with any knife company. Nobody sends me knives. I buy them. So why wouldn't you want to hear independent opinion? I am happy to say that this knife makes 25 strikes with severe prying left and right.
All right, time to talk value. 250 bones, as Neves would say himself. It's a hefty price to pay, especially for a small fixed blade that has a niche use. It's not ideal for slicing, you know, apples, peeling potatoes. It will be okay, I think, at opening boxes and packages. But this is not the primary reason for this knife to be. This is a self-defense tactical blade. I will actually say it's unapologetically tactical. And let's talk about this angle. So if you look closely right there, it's at a 45 degrees. So it's not quite the scythe, nor is it a sickle like other karambits. The best I can figure, and I don't know how much experimentation Kell and Jared did together with this shape, I think this makes for a very nimble knife, because I can come in here without unlocking my wrist. At the same time, I can press push like that without unlocking my wrist. So I think the angle is properly done. While I was moaning and groaning about the sheath, out of the fixed blades that I have of a self-defense nature, this is probably the better one. Mainly because I was able to configure it where, as you could see, the knife was absolutely concealed and still easy to access, still easy to extract. And because of how the handle is angled, when I tag it out of the sheath, it rotates just slightly, and these claws, in this orientation, these claws bite into my belt, and they prevent the sheath from sliding. It's just about the only knife with a factory with the original clip that can do that. And another thing, from a knife collector perspective, I think there's a lack of designers right now in the knife industry that can honestly say that they have any kind of hands-on experience in A, using tools hard, and B, first-hand knowledge of every possible steel blade shape, geometry, like Jared does, because he sharpened knives for years. In fact, everything I know about sharpening knives, or almost everything I know, came from watching his videos. So I can relate to this experience because I was a machinist, a certified machinist, tool and die maker before I went to engineering school. And that experience of actually fabricating things, working with machinery, made me what I am today. So I think Jared has a bright future as a knife designer. I wouldn't be surprised to see an actual manufacturing company with his name on it. And at that point, this knife, his first production knife, will be a highly priced collectible.